Hey, what is going on guys? Danny here, hope you've all been doing well. In this video, I wanted to show you guys a bunch of ways and give you guys some tips on how to optimize your gaming PC for the best gaming performance possible. Over the last few years of uploading game performance tests and benchmarks, I've often gotten comments where people would state they have the same or similar configured systems, but don't see the same level of performance. Now, there could be a lot of reasons for this. It could come down to the types of programs you have installed on your operating system, whether or not your hardware is overclocked, and stuff like game settings. So I'll be showing you guys what are some tweaks that I do to my system so that I can attain the best gaming performance. Some of these tips may be pretty obvious, but I know there are a lot of people out there who might be new to PC gaming, so it'll be worthwhile in that regard. However, it might be in your best interest to use this video as a refresher in case you run into any issues in the future. Starting off with the first tip, and that is to make sure you're using the latest drivers for your system's hardware, or at the very least, running the most stable version of the drivers. This is probably one of the first things anyone should do once they've built their gaming rig and installed their operating system. Components which have drivers associated with them to ensure optimal performance can include your video card, motherboard chipset drivers, peripheral drivers, and other PCIe device drivers such as a sound card. Let's also not forget about UEFI updates for the motherboard, which you can update through the BIOS itself. If you want to know how to update your motherboard's BIOS, link for that will be in the video description. Driver and BIOS updates are important because they warrant your hardware is able to perform correctly, ensure stability, and so that you don't run into any problems with newer software or updates, such as game-ready drivers or new security patches for the operating system like Meltdown or Spectre mitigations. I don't recommend using any bloated software that advertise they'll scan your PC and update all your outdated or missing drivers. It's your gaming PC. Recognize what parts you have in it. Go to the manufacturer's website and install the drivers manually yourself, so you know exactly what you're dealing with. The next few tips are going to be tweaks and settings that you can change within Windows 10. First off, open Task Manager and click on the Startup tab. Here it will list a whole bunch of programs and applications which are started and open once you boot into Windows. There are a lot of programs here that usually don't need to be started up with Windows. When you install these programs by default, they are selected to start up with your operating system. What I've done is gone through the entire list and disabled the startup for pretty much every program except for Host Manager application, Windows Host Process, and Windows Security Notifications, as those are essential services required to keep your operating system functioning correctly. But as you guys can see, programs like Epic Games Client, Discord, Adobe Updater, Skype for Business, and many more. These are programs I just don't need started up with Windows. When I do need them, I'll open them up at the appropriate time. Like when I'm gaming with friends, I'll open up Discord, or when I want to play Fortnite, I'll open up the Epic Games Launcher. But if I'm not using them, then there's no need for them to be open and use system resources with background processes. It's unnecessary, and it's better not to have those apps affecting the performance with your programs you might actually be using at the time. Disabling startup for those programs will also help with boot times, so if you're still using a hard drive in this day and age as your boot drive, then this will definitely help in that regard. Next, right-click on the Windows icon on the bottom left of the taskbar and click on the power options, and it should open a new window. On the right side, you'll see additional power settings. Click on that. Here it will present to you with various power plans which you can choose to apply to your PC. These power plans will manage how your computer uses power. By default, your power plan will be set to balanced, where it offers more performance when you need it and saves power when you don't. You can leave it at this if you want it so that your processor can downclock and save power if you're not gaming or using a high computing productivity app. However, if you want to ensure best gaming performance, you can use the high performance plan. When this power plan is active, your processor will usually be operating at its peak performance, which means it will have its clock speeds pushed to the max. If you've got your processor overclocked, it will have all cores set to whatever multiplier and frequency ratio you have set to, or if you're using it stock, you'll notice that the processor is going to be using its turbo speeds a lot more rapidly and frequently. This power plan will also prevent it from downclocking and parking cores so that all threads are active. Along with that, it will manage processes in the background in accordance to what you're using currently, whether it can keep certain services running or if it needs to stop them. Of course, do keep in mind, by using a high performance power plan, your gaming PC will be consuming more power considerably. So what you can do if you perhaps want to minimize that electricity bill as much as possible, only use the high performance plan if you know you're going to be gaming for that period, otherwise just switch back to the balanced power plan. If you want to take things further though, with the Windows 10 build 17083, Microsoft introduced a ultimate performance plan, and it says provides ultimate performance on higher end PCs. On the 10 forums, they do go more in depth with explaining what it does. Demanding workloads or workstations always desire more performance. As part of our effort to provide the absolute maximum performance, we're introducing a new power policy called Ultimate Performance. Windows has developed key areas where performance and efficiency trade-offs are made in the OS over time. We've amassed a collection of settings which allow the OS to quickly tune the behavior based on the user preference, policy, underlying hardware, or workload. This new plan builds on the current high-performance policy, and it goes a step further to eliminate micro-latencies associated with fine-grained power management techniques. To enable it, open the command prompt and type in this command. Once that's done, it should appear in the power plans menu, and you'll be able to select it and apply it to your PC. So if you feel as if Windows isn't fully utilizing your system's hardware, definitely play around and experiment with these different performance plans and see what works best for you. Moving on, the next thing you guys can do is set Windows to turn off extra appearance and visual features so that instead it favors high performance. To do this, open up the control panel, click on System and Security, click on System, and on the left you'll see Advanced System Settings. Once you've opened that up, click on the Advanced tab and the first section will have Performance Settings. After you've clicked on Settings, it will open up another window where it lists options to adjust for best appearance or best performance. If you've already got a high-end PC, this wouldn't really improve things a whole lot, but you might see a bigger difference on a PC that has limited resources. I recommend choosing Adjust for Best Performance. All it does is turn off the extra visual features that Windows 10 has, like see-through status bars and animations to boxes when you open or close them. In my opinion, it's better to turn them off as you're hardly even going to notice them, and turning them off won't actually ruin your Windows experience in any way, as you'll still have the same full functionality of the OS. Plus, this frees up memory space as well. I personally don't care about those features either, so it doesn't hurt to just keep the option disabled and allocate systems hardware for better performance instead. Another thing you guys can do is delete temporary and old cached files into temp and app data folders. Now you can manually open up each one of these folders, select all the files and delete them yourself, but a much faster and easier method would be to open up Windows Explorer, navigate to My PC, right-click on your C drive and click on Properties. In the General tab, you'll see an option that's called Disk Cleanup. Click on that and it should open up another window. Now here, it will list all sorts of files that are unnecessarily taking up space on the drive, from thumbnails to cached files. You can go ahead and select all of them, and as you're doing that, in the bottom right corner, it's going to be telling you how much space you can get rid of. Go ahead and click OK, and it should start deleting those files. Don't worry, it's not going to delete any files or programs that you actually need. Once you've done all of that, Windows has a really useful built-in tool that allows you to optimize and defrag your drives. It's important to do this to your drives regularly as it can help improve their performance and reduce load times. You see, as you're writing data over time to your hard drive, which has moving platters, the drive will become fragmented, which is the tendency of a file system to lay out the contents of files in non-continuously to allow in-place modifications of their contents. File system fragmentation increases disk head movement or seek time, which are known to hinder throughput. In addition, file systems cannot sustain unlimited fragmentation. The correction to existing fragmentation is to reorganize files and free space back into contiguous areas, a process that's called defragmentation. Now, SSDs don't have to be defragmented. In fact, if you even try to defrag the SSD, you could actually end up damaging it. Thankfully, Windows won't even let you defrag any SSDs the OS picks up. Instead, you can just optimize them, and the way they are optimized is through a trim command, which allows an operating system to inform the solid-state drive which blocks of data are no longer considered in use and can be wiped internally so that they can be rewritten to again. Moving on, one thing you guys want to do is deactivate the Xbox DVR recording option. As Microsoft is trying to bring the Xbox ecosystem to Windows, they have been implementing a lot of the same features that you can find on the Xbox One. One of these features is that they will constantly be recording your gameplay in the background, so that you have the ability to share clips through social media or through the Xbox app. It works similarly to AMD's Relive or Nvidia's Share or Shadowplay, but as most users will be using a graphics card from either vendor, then the Xbox DVR feature is redundant and unnecessary. And as most of you who stream or record gameplay, you probably know this, that as you're doing recording, you'll have to endure a hit to your performance. So in order to prevent this, open the settings menu, click on gaming, go to captures on the left, and you'll see the option which states record in the background while I'm playing a game. You want to turn that option off. You're better off just sticking to the options I mentioned earlier. The next thing I wanted to talk about were the settings that I use in the Nvidia control panel. Right-click anywhere on your desktop and open up the Nvidia control panel. On the left-hand side, you'll see options for 3D settings, display, stereoscopic 3D, and video. You want to expand the 3D settings option and click on Manage 3D Settings. I usually just stick to using the global settings, as it will apply those settings for all my games. Most of the graphics options you can set to your discretion, but there are 3 options I recommend you use. For power management mode, you want to be using Perform Maximum Performance, make sure you have shader cache on, and turn on threaded optimization. These settings will ensure the games can take full advantage of your GPU. If you have an AMD Radeon graphics card, you'll find similar options in the Wattman section of the Adrenalin software. The other thing I wanted to talk about was that don't completely max out your games or turn up every single slider and call it a day. Spend 5 or 10 minutes to tweak the in-game settings a bit. I do that for all the games I play because there are a lot of settings that sometimes won't make a huge difference visually, but will still become a resource hog, and there's no point to that. I've noticed that plenty of games still look stunning even on high settings, so you don't necessarily have to turn everything to ultra. Shifting our focus away from software and OS tweaks, take a look at your hardware. Open up your PC case and give a thorough examination of your system's hardware. Mainly check for dust buildup. Dust buildup is definitely an issue you don't want to deal with, as it can negatively affect thermals and airflow. If you've noticed quite a bit of dust, I recommend getting a compressed air can and start spraying areas where dust can build up, such as your fans, heat sinks, and dust filters. I also suggest doing this outside, possibly in an open area, and maybe if you can't, go to a garage, as you don't want to be getting all that dust in your working or playing area. Monitor your temperatures using programs like MSI Afterburner or Hardware Info. If you notice the temps are quite high, that can negatively affect your system's performance, as it can cause your CPU or GPU to throttle. Let's say you've cleaned out as much dust as possible, but are still noticing high temps. Add 1 or 2 more fans to your PC's case and try to increase your airflow. Another important thing to consider is when was the last time you applied thermal paste to your CPU. If it's been over 2 years, you might want to consider repasting the CPU, as over time the compound can dry out and lose out on thermal conductivity. The same also goes for your GPU. Last but not least, probably the most impactful thing you can do to your PC is overclock, overclock, and overclock. And no, I wasn't repeating myself there 3 times just to emphasize its importance, but also because there are literally 3 components in your PC that you can overclock and tune to greatly improve gaming performance. In my 1080 Ti review, and also my video where I benchmark 7 different RAM speeds, a lot of games had shown a significant uplift in terms of average FPS and frame times once the hardware is overclocked. So if you haven't attempted to overclock your hardware, give it a shot. There are some things to keep in mind though. Overclocking results will vary from component to component. Just because one person with the same CPU as you managed to get 4.6 GHz doesn't necessarily mean you will as well. Overclocking will also have an effect on higher power consumption and thermals. And even though a lot of manufacturers will use overclocking capabilities to advertise and market their products, if you actually read the warranty information, some of them will state that you can void the product's warranty if you do decide to overclock it, since you are going out of spec. So there are some trade-offs there, but if you are feeling confident with yourself and can properly overclock your hardware, you shouldn't have much to worry about. So there you guys have it. Those are pretty much all the tweaks and optimizations that I have made to my gaming PC to ensure I get the best performance out of my hardware. I know I didn't go into the whole disabling various Windows services And that's mainly because everyone has different use cases, and I also know that it's better to not mess around with those processes that could harm your computer's stability and interrupt or prevent programs from functioning properly. At that point, I would recommend just dealing with the problem directly, such as upgrading your computer hardware. The other thing I don't recommend is downloading any sort of game booster software. Personally, from my experience, they hardly make a difference, so I'd rather deal with any tweaks myself and make changes manually rather than let this one-click gimmicky software make changes to my computer. And in fact, Windows 10 actually has a game mode, so make sure you turn that on as well. I hope you guys found this video to be informative and helpful. Let me know if you guys have any questions or thoughts down below. Check out the video description for my other videos and ways to support your channel. If you're interested in more content like this, then make sure you're subscribed. Thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.